Hi, welcome to History 1301, Section 161. This is U.S. history up to 1877. My name is Alfonso R. Lopez, and I will be your instructor for this class this semester. Now, what we're going to be doing in this class introduction is to go over the syllabus. The syllabus is perhaps the most important document for this course because it really explains everything that you need to know about this course in the format of instruction, the required text, for example. Uh, it presents, of course, also the exams formats as well, how many exams there are going to be, the percentage for each exam, how they're going to be delivered, and also the class assignment. There's going to be one main class assignment that is due towards the end of the semester as well. So, everything that you need to know in order to prepare yourself for knowing how to navigate this course, and of course, what is to be expected week by week, what are the main assignments, the requirements and the like. Everything is contained in the syllabus, and that's what we're going to be doing here in this video presentation to guide you to really identify the major components of this course on Blackboard, because it is through Blackboard that we're going to be presenting this course. So I will just guide you as to what are the major links to the assignments, for example, the instructional materials. This is what you're going to be learning, for example, week by week, and where to also upload the assignments. All of the assignments, including the exams, will have to be uploaded on Blackboard on specific due dates. So everything that you need to know will be explained in this class introduction. So I highly recommend that you go over this video presentation as thoroughly as possible. If you want to take notes, that's perfect, because this is, again, the main guidance to the course. This is where you're going to learn how to not only prepare yourself, but also how to excel in this course. That's what's important. Okay, so now let us go to the Blackboard page. Let us open that page here on the screen. Right, so I believe we're already there. Okay, so when you open the Blackboard page, this is what you're going to see. Now, I have not yet posted any announcement as of now, but by Monday, the 19th, I will post an announcement and I will email it to you indicating that this video presentation is already ready to view and where to actually go and access it. So it's very simple because when you open the Blackboard page, all of the main links to the course are going to be located to the left of the screen in this blue column. Again, all of those links really direct you to certain sections of the course which are essential. And at the very, very top, I placed syllabus. This is something I created this week, early this week, so it has been there available for review. But we're going to be going over it, of course, in this video presentation. So now, just below syllabus, you're going to see a link titled Class Introduction. This is where this video is going to be uploaded. And so this is where you're going to be accessing, again, this particular video presentation. But as of now, let us just go over the syllabus. So let's click on syllabus. When you click on syllabus, you're going to see a page on the screen. And what I done is that I created, of course, a whole page of the syllabus here for you to just read, to be so accessible, that is to say. If you want to download the file, of course, the file is already here as well on the very top. You can just download it and maybe keep it in your computer or print it. That's fine. So let's go over now every section of the syllabus. We're not going to cover everything because It's about 16 pages. So the last 7 or 8 pages are just policies and regulations. We're not going to go over that. I mean, this is just for you to identify, for example, where to go if you have technical problems related to Blackboard, for tech support, for example, stuff like that. Policies regarding withdrawals, incompletes, grading, and the like. Again, it's more technical, if you will. We're not really going to go over that. Just really concentrate on what this course is about and how to prepare and excel, in this course. All right, so let's start from the top. This is History 1301, Section 161, History up to 1877. My name, once again, is Alfonso R. Lopez. I will be your instructor for this class this semester. Now, the fastest and easiest way to reach me is via email communication. Okay, so I'm checking my email several times a day. So whenever you have a doubt, a concern regarding any of the lectures or grading or an assignment, so on, just send me an email message and I will respond. If it is Monday through Friday within a 24-hour period, Monday through Friday, it's only in the weekends that I might take 48 hours. So if you send it Saturday, it is not guaranteed that I will reply within a 24-hour period, but rather 48 hours. Okay, so Monday through Friday, within a 24-hour period, I will reply. Okay, so this is the easiest way to communicate. Now, another thing, and I highly recommend that whenever you are sending me an email, use your ACC email address. ACC policy requires that all communication between faculty and students take place within the ACC electronic resources. So please be advised that if you send me an email from your private account, I'm not going to reply to that account. What I'll do is just I'll reply to your ACC account. Okay, that's what I'll do. Also, if you can indicate the class and class number, when you're sending an email, you say, I'm from History 1301, Section 161, and so on and so forth. I mean, it just facilitates, if you will, the response. I know from which class this is coming from, and so on. Again, it just makes it much easier to communicate. All right. Now, in terms of textbooks, if there's going to be a required text, there is going to be a required text for this course. Although this is not the standard conventional textbook that is used in other classes in terms of, well, this is the textbook that we're going to be reading along the lectures. This is where we obtain information on a week-to-week basis on what is being presented in class. No, we're not going to use that kind of textbook. This is more of a supplemental text. It's a very thin booklet. If you can see, this is it. Again, this is the textbook right here. It's very thin. It's about 190 pages. And it's a collection of documents. So it's not a textbook. I mean, it has no narrative, in which you read from page to page, but it's just a collection of documents or primary sources. Those are documents that are memoirs or letters or speeches, made by very important historical actors of American history. And why are you going to use this? This will be used for an assignment that is due at the very end of the semester. I think it's December 2nd. We're going to get there to the date. So it's really towards the very end of the semester that is due. It's an assignment. So the question is, do you need to buy this textbook now? Well, not really, not right now, but I would not hesitate or procrastinate again, weeks after weeks, buying it, because you don't want to be buying this, let's say, in November, because it takes time to complete this assignment. Um, so you want to get it perhaps at the very latest, I will say mid-October. If you can just get it by mid-October, that's, you're still in a safe zone. You still have plenty of time to complete the assignment. We're going to go over the instructions of the assignment uh, in a few moments. But you can buy it at the ACC bookstore, I think at Highland campus. Uh, if for some reason they're out of stock, um, you may obtain this book also online from several sources. You can buy it from Amazon or Barnes and Noble and so on. Again, just make sure you're getting the fourth edition, the fourth, okay, the fourth edition, because the documents I selected for the assignment come from the fourth edition. If you get the third edition or the second edition, more than likely you're not going to find those same documents because they vary from edition to edition. The publisher pretty much puts different documents in every edition. Okay, so just make sure you're getting the fourth edition. If you want to make sure you're getting the exact edition for this course, use the ISBN number that is written here. Okay, the ISBN number is really a good way of getting the exact edition, if you will. Whenever you're buying a text, and if you wanted to buy exactly like let's say a book that was published in the 1960s and so on, a very early edition, one of the first editions of a particular book, the ISBN number actually is the way to locate that particular early edition, if you will. In this case, we're talking about the fourth edition of this text published in 2020. So the ISBN number will help you, again, pretty much identify and locate that text. All right, so this is an online course which will be delivered asynchronously. That is to say that there's no designated class meetings for real-time instruction. So we're not going to be holding meetings like other synchronous classes, that are online. So this is totally, again, very flexible format in which the student is given just the materials to review and learn in their own time and schedule. So I know students have different schedules, different, responsibilities and so on. And so again, this really allows you to just create your own class time, if you will, again. So I will, in just a few moments, explain how you're going to be learning the material, the mode of instruction, and the expectation. In other words, what is expected from you to be doing week by week. But just keep in mind that this is a totally asynchronous class, okay? Asynchronous format online. If you have any problems navigating through this course, due to Blackboard's issues and so on, you can always contact tech support, IT, at the ACC, of course, campus, and they will help you out, again, resolve any problem, any issue, with Blackboard. All right, so let's go over the course description. In other words, what the course is going to be about. Okay, first and foremost, so this is the first half of U.S. history. And so the first half of U.S. history is going to look at American history from going all the way back to the ancient world. Okay, so it really goes back thousands of years ago, if you will, by looking at the Americas, the American continent, and looking at the Native American groups and civilizations that inhabited the continent. We're not going to look at all of them, but we are going to look at Native American history, just briefly, in looking at, identifying perhaps the major civilizations that flourished in the Americas, and also identifying the ones that existed in North America as well before the arrival of the Europeans. We're also going to look at the ancient world in Europe, because the United States at some point will be the meeting of cultures, the meeting of peoples coming from different worlds, if you will. One will be the Native Americans, and the other one, of course, the Europeans arriving to the American continent after Columbus' discovery in 1492. And so we have to look at the European background, where the Europeans were coming from, what kind of world existed, in the other side of the Atlantic Ocean, in Europe. And we're also going to pay attention just briefly at the major civilizations of Europe that gave Europe its distinct characteristics, like Greek civilization, the Romans, for example. And we're also going to look at the Middle Ages, the Dark Ages, and of course, the rise of the Age of Discovery, when the Europeans began to step out of Europe and began to explore the world around them, the age of exploration and discovery, of course. This is, again, something that will allow Columbus to make his journey to America in 1492. He was an explorer as well. So out of the encounters of Europeans and Americans after Columbus's discovery in 1492, we're going to look at colonization. In other words, what really was at the very beginning, just looking at what was pushing Europeans out of Europe to come to America. What were the reasons why Europeans were arriving in great numbers in the 15 and 1600s to settle and colonize the Americas? So we will examine the reasons, and one of those reasons had to do with economics. Okay, so the American continent presented an economic opportunity for Europeans to settle, find land, develop enterprises. It was a new economic beginning, if you will. Prosperity in America, if you will. The establishment of those colonies had to do with that. Again, it was just economic development, developing enterprises, mining, plantations as well, trade. So we're going to be looking at that, very closely. What was really pushing Europeans out, first and foremost, was an economic need to prosper and develop enterprises, but also religion. We're also going to look at the factor of religion, how religion is going to be also fundamental in the colonization of America, meaning that there were in Europe a series of religious upheavals and problems related to the split of the Catholic Church in the 1500s, when the Catholic Church lost its dominance in the religious affairs of Europeans. And we see the rise of Protestantism, the Protestants. And those were actually Catholics that were leaving the church in protest. And we're going to see, of course, conflict between Catholics and Protestants. And that conflict was another push factor for many of those Protestant groups to see the American continent as a new beginning. In other words, look, we're going to be running away, if you will, from the problems of Europe, the persecution and the like, and we're going to establish colonies in North America that will be religious communities. Again, they wanted to really create new types of communities, a community of believers, if you will. So we're going to see the founding of 5 or 6 colonies in North America by Great Britain that were actually religious communities. So again, we're going to explore also that topic, the topic on religion. Now, within the colonial period itself, when we look at the colonial period, now that we're seeing colonial societies emerging in North America, we're going to see a series of colonies, 13 colonies developed by Great Britain in North America, of course. We're also going to pay attention to perhaps one of the most important factors or events that shaped those colonial societies. And what we're going to be doing here is paying attention to, for example, the slave trade. Okay, there will be a whole topic devoted to the transatlantic slave trade. Because at some point, the Europeans will bring from Africa millions of people into the New World. the vast majority, of course, of the African slaves brought by the Europeans went into places like South America, Brazil, Central America, the Caribbean islands. And only a tiny fraction came to North America, to the British colonies of Virginia and Carolina and Georgia. So we are going to be paying attention to the slave trade, very thoroughly, by the way. We have to look at Africa, just looking very briefly at the background of African societies and African cultures to understand the social environment, the cultural environment from which the African slaves were coming from, in other words. And we're going to see how, once they were brought into the New World, how their lives changed from the ways they live in Africa now to the ways they are now living in the British colonies of Virginia, Carolina, and Georgia. So we're going to be paying attention to that, and also we're going to be paying attention as to why is it that plantation owners from those British colonies I just mentioned decided to introduce African slavery in the first place. Okay, it's also important, to pretty much analyze why those British colonies decided that this was something that was necessary, introduce African slave labor, in their colonies to grow things like rice and tobacco and so on in those colonies. Another thing we're going to be paying attention in the colonial period is we're going to be also paying attention to change, how those colonies were changing over time. I mentioned there were 5 or 6 colonies that were established by religious communities. Those were actually religious societies, those colonies. And we're going to see how over time, perhaps again throughout the 1600s, those religious communities were changing from generation to generation. The religious fervor and zeal that they felt, of pretty much building a religious community, a community of believers, is going to be changing over time. And the descendants of the early settlers of those religious communities are not going to be that religious. They're going to be losing over time that intensity, that idealism of maintaining a religious society. Again, we're going to see the transition towards a more materialistic, society. We're also going to see the conversion, the religious conversion of the Native Americans. Again, the fact is that the Puritans, among other religious groups, were also trying to convert the Native American population to Christianity. So we're going to also see the process of conversion. Well, the Native Americans that were converted to Christianity, how this process came about, and what kind of beliefs they formulated about Christianity. The Native Americans did not convert to Christianity the way the Europeans understood Christianity. They're going to create their own version of Christianity. It's called Indian Christianity. We're also going to see the conversion of the African slaves as well, in this class, how the African slaves also abandoned their African religious beliefs and traditions, converted to Christianity, but in the process, they also created their own version of Christianity, very unique, very different from the way the Europeans understood Christianity as well. So we're going to be looking at that as well. So we're going to be talking about change as well in terms of how the colonies are going to be growing due to immigration. And as the colonies were expanding, they were moving westward, trying to seize lands in the West, and that is going to produce clashes with the Native Americans, of course, but also with the French that were in the Western lands, and they were allied with the Native Americans. Again, so we're going to look at the French and Indian War as well. That really kind of brought the colonial world to an end, because after the French and Indian War, we're going to see the colonies now moving towards independence. The 13 colonies are going to be thinking about freeing themselves from England in order to expand westward even more. And also because they were beginning to be taxed very heavily by England because England fought the French and Indian War to protect the colonies, and now England was raising taxes on the colonies in order to pay for the expenses of the war, of course. So we're going to see again the process of independence. We're going to cover very thoroughly the independence revolution that marked the end of the colonial period. And then the last part of the course is going to look at the early decades of nationhood, the formation of the United States as an independent republic. We're going to look at the ideas that the framers of or the founding fathers of the United States used to create the United States, what kind of system of government they created in the Constitution and the like. We're going to pay attention to that. And also look at some of the initial challenges that the United States faced in the initial years of nationhood as well. So we're going to be doing that, and also in the national period, we're also going to look at the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution was perhaps one of the most important phenomena and events in U.S. history of the 19th century. It is in the early 1800s that the United States began to industrialize, but only in the North. Only the northern states, particularly the northeastern states, New England, Rhode Island, for example, New York, Pennsylvania, were industrializing, building factories, industrial plants, and, we see the coming of the railroad, for example, the gradual rise of the middle class. We see the introduction of a new system of labor called wage labor, wage labor in the North, which is, again, industrial capitalism. The half of the country, the northern part of the country, was changing. It was industrializing. It was building railroads and canals and so on. It was becoming very, very commercial oriented. Whereas, of course, in the South, we're going to see the South stagnating and remaining pretty much agricultural, devoted to the production of cotton through the use of slave labor. So we're going to be paying attention to that, the Industrial Revolution, how this process of industrialization took place in the North, how the North is changing very rapidly, with the coming of the factory system and the railroads, for example. And at the very end of the course, we're going to see how ultimately, because of the sharp differences between an industrial North and an agricultural South, each with different systems of labor, wage labor in the North and slave labor in the South, this is going to lead to tensions in a rupture in the country. By 1860, the country had become so divided over the issue of slavery and slave labor that in 1860 the South, the southern states that were the slave states, separated from the Union, and that generated the Civil War. It's something that we're going to get to see in very great depth in the last topic of the semester, the Civil War, how the South seceded from the Union, how the war began in 1861, and how it ended in 1865 with the ultimate and final defeat of the southern slave states and the process of Reconstruction. We're also going to see the reunification of the country, the process by which the country was unified once again, something called Reconstruction, again, that ended in 1877. This is the course content, what we're going to be covering as a whole. Now, it is also very important that you understand the way I present this material. I just synthesize what I'm going to cover in the entire semester, and I did it in 15 minutes. And of course, this is going to be elaborated in great detail, in depth, step by step, every step of the way. Again, every topic will be expanded, and there will be, of course, a lot of analysis. But it is also very important to note that I present this material from what is called a global perspective. This material is taught in colleges and universities in the United States very differently. If you take the same course with another professor, even though you're covering really essentially the same material. The same material is presented very differently because every professor has different specializations, different areas of specialty, and so on. It can be economics, it can be political, it can be cultural, and so on. Again, everybody teaches it very, very different with different emphasis. The way I teach it is that I teach U.S. history from a global perspective, meaning that I try to look at the big picture. So while I'm teaching U.S. history and I'm focusing on specific events happening, let's say, in New England or happening in the American South and so on, it's true. I focus on that, but I also focus on what was really going on around the world at the same time. In other words, how events taking place here at home in the US were influenced or impacted by events that were taking place elsewhere. Okay, so I try to find connections, if you will, between what was going on in one local area with the outer area, if you will. That's what the global perspective is. So I just gave you an example. For example, when we talk about the slave trade, and I say, okay, so what were the factors that led the Virginia planters, let's say the plantation owners from Virginia colony, decide to import African slaves? So again, I have to pay attention to what was really going on around the world. Okay, so there's a growing demand for cash crops, for sugar, for, let's say, tobacco, and tobacco planters want to grow, again, crops that they could export around the world. So you have to pay attention to the global economy or the global market. Again, that there's a demand, if you will, of certain commodities that Virginia planters want to produce, and they deem necessary to import slave labor and from Africa. Likewise, when you look at the slave trade and said, okay, so African slaves are coming again now into Virginia colony. They're being imported into the Virginia colony. Now, what is really the background of Africa? Okay, let's look at African society and African culture. It is not just enough to say, okay, African slaves are now being imported into Virginia and then move on, but rather we have to make a connection as to, okay, so if we're going to see significant numbers of people coming from Africa into America, well, it's important to look at Africa. It's important to look at the regions from which the slaves are coming from, the western kingdoms of Africa, for example, in the western coast, and look at the culture there, look at the religion, So we have to look at Africa, okay? So this is not to say that we're going to spend a lot of time talking about Africa, but we do have to understand Africa, okay? So that is the global perspective. The same with Europe. Europeans will be coming after Columbus to colonize the New World. Well, let's look at European civilization, because Europeans are bringing to the Americas their own culture, their own ideas, their own religions, their own practices, traditions, and so on. So we have to understand the European background and so on. So that's what we mean about the global perspective, that we have to pay attention to world civilizations, how they're interacting with one another, and how out of those interactions we see the generation of the United States, because the United States ultimately really was formed by peoples that were coming from different parts of the world, whether it was Europe, Africa, or the American continent itself, the Native Americans. So again, taking this course is almost like you're taking U.S. history and world civilizations almost simultaneously, hand by hand, in the same course. There's going to be, a kind of feel to that. Also, another thing to keep in mind is that when I'm presenting my lectures, you will notice that this is not just a lecture that describes what happened in the past and say, okay, so this is the year when this happened. You just have to know that this is the individual that was responsible to lead this movement. And so you're just memorizing names and dates. It's not about that. History has to be more analytical. We have to understand why things happen. Okay, not just what happened, but also why, the multiplicity of factors that produce history. Okay, this is very important. first and foremost. We also have to understand people, because ultimately when we study history, we're studying human beings. Okay? So we have to understand the way people are thinking. We have to understand what makes them tick, how they saw the world around them. Okay? So we have to get inside their mindsets as well. So once again, we're not just describing what happened in the past, we're understanding why. And part of understanding why things happen is understanding people from within. In other words, getting ourselves in their shoes as much as possible, to see the world through their eyes as much as we can, to understand them. So in order to do that, what I do in my lectures is that I step out of the field of history, and I'll borrow ideas from other academic fields like sociology, anthropology, psychology, religion, political science, philosophy. In other words, is going to be very, very multidisciplinary. In other words, it's not just historical in terms of, well, this is just what happened in the past and just memorize it, but rather it's very analytical, and we're trying to understand people from within. So we have to, for example, psychology is very useful. The field of psychology in the field of history, because the field of psychology is really trying to understand human behavior, how human beings behave by the way humans are conditioned or raised in their environment. Okay, we are the byproduct of all of our life experiences. Ever since we were born into this world, when a human being is born into the world, that human being is now exposed to the environment, to the people around them, and is beginning to learn from them. So we learn from experience. And so as we grow older and older, all the ideas that were taught to us, whether those were religious ideas or cultural ideas, they were shaping the way we started looking at the world around them. So that's exactly what I do, is that for me to understand any human being or a society or a tribe or a community or a country, I have to understand how people are raised. For example, what kind of religion was instilled on them, what kind of experiences they had, whether those were challenging experiences or positive experiences, doesn't matter. But we have to really understand the behavior and what shapes the behavior of human societies. Of course, this is what I do from time to time. When I look at religion, for example, okay, like Native American religion, or the religion of the Europeans, like the Puritans and so on. It's not just enough to say, oh, this is what they believe and move forward, but rather we have to go in depth and pretty much see the world through their eyes as much as possible. What kind of gods do they believe in? Why was it necessary to practice the rituals that they did? If they practice magic, okay, so what was magic for them, and what kind of magical event was taking place inside of the ritual? So we really explore those issues, when we talk about religion, for example, that we go in depth and try to see reality as those individuals perceived reality, from their level. In other words, it's not from our own perspective, but from their own perspective as well. If they believed in spirits, if they believed in forces and so on, that they were interacting with them or communicating with them, all of that will be explained here very thoroughly. Okay. So I'm just at this point just preparing you to understand, how I actually teach this course, what kind of methods I use, and how deep I go sometimes, again, in order to really understand historical actors, how people were thinking, how people were perceiving the world, and so on, again, as much as possible. Now the mode of learning, how you're going to be learning this material that I just had explained in the past minutes. Now, the way you're going to be learning this material is through a series of recorded video lectures. I use a software that is the same software I'm using to record this presentation right here. It's exactly the same. Okay? There's no difference. So what I've done is that I recorded all of my classes. The same class I give in campus on a face-to-face instruction, when I go there and teach, let's say twice a week, Mondays and Wednesdays, let's say an hour and 20 minutes each is the same. Again, class I record here with this software. Okay, it spans for about an hour and 20 minutes, if you will. Okay, each lecture. It's almost like a day. Each lecture is almost like a day in campus. It's an hour and 20 minutes that you're sitting in class, taking notes, listening to the instructor. You know, you have to be taking notes. You see on the projector the outline, bullet points. You know, I present graphs or maps, paintings or whatever. Again, visual aids, that is to say. And so this is the same thing, again, that you will expect. Is that so I have recorded all of my classes, all of them. You know, the same classes I teach in campus are now recorded. They are exactly the same. Okay? Exactly the same. So I made sure that students taking this online asynchronous class feel that they are in class, in other words. That, look, you know, I see the instructor, he's talking to me, he's giving a lecture just like in class, and I can see the outline as well. So everything he's talking about, the major points, the key points, and so on, he's presenting them as well. So it's a virtual experience of the real instruction, if you will. It's the exact version of it, but in virtual format. Now, my lectures are not provided randomly. The way I organize my lectures is that I organize my lectures based on themes or topics. Okay? So it's not like, well, one lecture he was talking about this issue, and then the second lecture was just a whole different issue unrelated to the first. It's not like that. This whole semester, the entire class will contain 9 themes. 9 themes. Some of which I already explained, you know, in the class description when I talked about what the course is going to be about. Okay, so there's going to be 9 themes. And the 9 themes are listed right here. Part 1 of the semester, The Ancient World to the Age of Discovery, has 3 topics or themes: the Native American history, culture, and religion, up to 1492. The second, European discovery, conquest, and colonization of America. And the third, the role of religion in the development of the British colonies. So every theme just discusses that subject matter and nothing else. And when I talk about Native Americans, that's all I talk about. I'm not jumping to the Civil War and then I go back to the Revolution, and no. Just Native American history. And I do that for 3 lectures. So there are 3 videos on the first topic, Native American history, culture, and religion. 3 classes. You finish that, and then you move into the second topic, the European discovery, conquest, and colonization of America. And that's all I talk about for 3 classes. So every single theme or topic has 3 videos, or 3 classes for that matter. And then the role of religion, the third topic. It also has 3 videos. And once we cover those 3 themes, we have an exam. Okay? I'll talk about the exams just in a few moments. Then we move into part 2, the colonial period. Then we move into the transatlantic slave trade, topic number 4. Colonial society in transition, topic number 5. And the American Revolution, topic number 6. Each has 3 videos. Then we have the second exam. And likewise, we move into the national period, part 3. We cover the New Republic, topic number 7, the Industrial Revolution, topic number 8, and the Civil War and Reconstruction, topic number 9. And then we have the final. And the final is only going to deal with the last 3 topics. Okay? So those are the 9 topics that we're going to cover in the semester. So you say, okay, so where are those videos? Okay, so if you go back to here, this menu column here on the left says course content. If you see instructional materials, you click on instructional materials. You see two folders. One is the recorded video lectures and the lecture outlines. The lecture outlines are the outlines to the topics. So if I talk about Native American history, culture, and religion, and you're going to see the outline on the screen as I'm actually giving the class, you're going to see bullet points and maps and the like. You say, okay, so where can I find those outlines that I was looking at when he was giving the lecture? They're right here in the lecture outlines and questions. Okay, there are going to be 9 outlines. But in the folder recorded video lectures, when you click on it, you will find 9 folders. Those are the 9 topics that I just mentioned right now. And each topic has 3 videos. So if you click, let's say, on topic number 1, Native American history, culture, and religion, you will find the 3 videos right there. They span about an hour and 20 minutes each. Some of them might be less, some of them might be a little bit more, but that's an average. It's like a class, again, on campus. Very similar. Okay? So, again, this is where you're going to be finding those videos, and this is where you're going to be looking at those videos, watching them one by one, taking notes. And you have to be taking notes because all of the exams will come from the lectures and nothing else. So you need to worry about outside readings or reading articles. And if you really want to do well on the exams, just watch those videos and take notes as thoroughly as possible. Okay? So, again, every folder contains 3 videos. Every folder. The European discovery, religious, societies, the slave trade, the American Revolution, and each one of them. You click on any of them and you're going to find 3 videos on each to watch. Okay? All right, so let's go and talk about the exams. So as I mentioned, there will be 3 exams for this course. 3 exams. Each is worth 25% of the final grade. Okay, 25% of the final grade each. What the exams are going to be like? Well, they're more like writing assignments, take home. They're not going to be timed. You're not going to be, on a lock browser or anything like that. It's just you watch the videos on your own time, and then what the exam entails is for you to answer a series of questions on one topic and then address key terms from another topic. Okay? So it's really, again, more like writing. There's no fill in the blank, there's no Scantron, nothing of that sort. It's just for you to look at a series of questions presented on one topic and then answer them as fully as possible. And then the key term section, part 2, address those key terms from another topic. So let me give you an example. Let's just say the first exam. Let's click on the first exam right here where it says submit work, so you can see the instructions, so I can guide you, more or less how this is going to work out. Okay, so there will be part 1 and part 2 to the exam. Okay, part 1, it tells you, choose one topic and answer all the questions as fully as possible for 70 points. So it tells you, you choose topic either number 1 on Native Americans, or you choose topic number 2 on the European discovery, conquest and colonization of America. So you're only doing one topic. You don't do 2, you only do 1. You choose which one you want to do. And you say, well, I'm really inclined to know more and study, let's say, the history of the Native Americans. This is the kind of subject that I'm most fascinated about. I want to learn everything about it. Okay, so you watch those 3 videos as thoroughly as you can, and then you answer one by one those questions, one by one. It's not like a superstructure where you have to have this perfect essay. It's nothing like that, okay? All you need to do is just follow a question and answer format. One by one, there are 4 questions. You look at the first question and you say, oh, he's asking here, what are the origins of the Native Americans? That's really the first part of the lecture. I talk about, what are the theories that deal with the origins of the Native Americans, where they came from, So you answer that as thoroughly as possible, and I mean as thoroughly as possible. Details are very important. And then you move into the second question, and where I talk about the different stages of development of the Native Americans, from hunter and gatherer to horticulture and agriculture. You have to talk about those stages. Oh, when they were hunters and gatherers, what kind of societies they created, the kind of religion they believed in, the practices and the like. I talk about very thoroughly. So you're supposed to also, in the second question, elaborate very thoroughly about that as well. Then I talk about the rise of the very advanced civilizations in the American continent, like the Maya, the Olmec, the Toltec, the mound builders of North America, for example. Okay, so you also answer that question very thoroughly. And fourth, why those civilizations collapsed by the year 900 AD. So that's part 1. Part 1, you've chosen topic number 1 and answer 4 questions very thoroughly. And just for part 1, you need 5 full pages, double space. So the answers for part 1, this topic that you just, this is just, again, it's just an example. If you choose topic number 1, the answers must comprise 5 full pages, double space. Once you're through with this, then you move into part 2, and part 2 requires that everybody will have to watch the third topic on religion and answer the key terms. You have to choose 2 key terms from a set of 5. Okay, so you answer those 2 key terms as fully as possible. I'm not just expecting that you just identify the term. You have to identify and fully describe and explain as fully as possible that term. So it's not just a dictionary type of answer, the key term, but rather, again, there's a lot to say. Once you watch the videos, when I talk about Martin Luther or John Calvin, the founder of the Puritans, there's a lot to be said about them. Okay? So I'm expecting that you are indeed, in your own words, explaining who those individuals were, why they were important in U.S. history as well, very fully, their religious ideas and the like. Again, so this is what the exam entails. Again, part 2 is 30%, 30 points. Part 1 is 70 points. This is the way it's going to work. And every exam is exactly the same. There's absolutely no difference. The second exam is exactly like the first. There's a part 1 where you choose 1 topic, you answer all the questions, and part 2, the key terms. It's exactly like that. And the final, exactly like that as well. Okay? So I'll talk about the due dates, once we talk about, the tentative course schedule. Now, of course, there's also extra credit assignments. Please keep in mind that there are 3 extra credit assignments if you want to add points to each exam, regardless of your grade standing. Everybody's entitled to do those. Those are optional. Those are not mandatory. There are 3 extra credit assignments in which you can add up to a whole letter grade to each exam. So again, your grades are not fixed and set in stone. Again, it's very flexible. You have a lot of room to change your grades and improve. Okay, where are those located? They're located here under course content, which says course assignments. You click on their course assignments, and you will find the instructions for the first, second exam, final exam, the report I'm about to talk about, and of course the folder on the very bottom says extra credit assignments. Extra credit assignments, that's the folder that will present to you the instructions for completing those extra credit assignments. Okay, All right. Now the report. There's only one course assignment for this class that is due at the end of the semester. This is where you're going to use this book right here. Okay? Fourth edition. I titled it the Study Questions Report because that's what it is. Again, I selected 10 documents from this text, 10, for you to read. They're short read and answer a series of questions on those documents. The guidelines are all here in the syllabus. They're also under course assignments. You already just show you that when you say the course assignments, these instructions again are also there as well. Okay, so it tells you the page number, the title of the document, and it tells you the questions that you need to answer. Now the answers for each document must be a page each. Now, let me rephrase that. For every document, let's say this document right now, Origins of Disease and Medicine, okay, that's the first document that you have to read. The answer to those questions that you see there must be a page, not a page for each question, but the whole, set of questions as a whole. Again, the answers must be a page, double space. Try to follow the question and answer format. In other words, identify the title of the document on top of the page and then go about writing the question and then the answer. Then when you move to the second document, write the title. Write the title on top, Fernando and Juana, monarchs of the kingdom of Castile and Aragon, and so on. And then write the questions and then the answers. And the answers for those questions must be another page. You go one by one. So at the end of the report, you'll end up with a 10-page double-space report. It must have a cover page, and the cover page doesn't count towards the body of the work. Okay? So this is, again, you have a whole semester, or you have 12 weeks. It's not a whole semester, but it's a 12-week course to complete it. Okay? So this is due December 2nd. Friday, December 2nd must be uploaded on Blackboard. Okay? All right, so the grading. First exam, second, and final exams, 25% each. Study question report, 25%. If we include the extra credit assignments, you can also add significant points to those grades that you earn in the first, second, and final. So you have, of course, a lot of room to improve your grades, of course. And also keep in mind that when I'm calculating your grades at the end of the semester, at the very end, when I'm calculating your grades, I pay attention to the progress or lack thereof. So I go student by student, calculating the grades. And if I see that a student started out low, let's say 75 in the first exam, but then it started improving, like 84 in the second, and then the final exam, it was 92 or 93. And the student submitted one extra credit assignment or two, let's say. But the student ended up with an 89, let's say, or thereabouts, let's say an 89 grade average at the very end. Well, if I see improvement and effort and commitment, I will give that student the A just because, again, I see a lot of improvement, progress, effort, and so on. So keep that in mind. If you are progressing from the first, second, and final exams and you're turning in extra credits and the like, that is going to help you a lot. Maybe jump into the next letter grade at the very end. Okay? Keep that in mind. Okay? Okay, so last but not least, the tentative course schedule and assignment. So this is more or less, again, this is tentative. This is not set in stone, but it just tells you more or less week by week what you're supposed to be reviewing. Okay, well, you have to be reviewing the first topic during the first week, then in the second week, immediately going to the European topic, second, perhaps third. By the third and fourth week, you're supposed to be already reviewing also the topic on religion, because by Monday, October 17, you're supposed to be turning in the first exam. So again, just time, if you will, the times when you're actually watching those videos and taking notes and the like, and just look at the schedule and say, well, if the first exam is due October 17, how many videos should I be watching, let's say, per week and the like, which topics am I supposed to be reviewing and the like. This is something that you're supposed to be doing on your own, but again, this tentative schedule is giving you pretty much an organization. When you move into part 2, you say, well, the second exam is not due until November 14th. So I should be reviewing the slave trade, as soon as I turn in the first exam. Well, I supposed to be moving into the fourth topic of the semester, the slave trade. And then you have colonial society in transition, which is a very fascinating topic, by the way. This where I talk about the conversion of the Native Americans, the conversion of the African slaves to Christianity and the like. Again, very interesting. And then the American Revolution. You're supposed to also look at the schedule. You have roughly 4 weeks between the submission of the first exam and the second, so you have to be timing, when you're supposed to be watching, again, those videos as well. And then you pay attention to part 3. You say, okay, so the final exam is not due until December 8th. So you also have to be timing when you're supposed to be watching the 7th, 8th, and 9th topics of the semester. You have about roughly 4 weeks as well to complete all of that, those 3 topics in 4 weeks as well. So you have, in the very end, December 2nd, the study questions report is due. And then you have the final exam due December 8th. Okay? So, this is just roughly speaking, again, how we're going to be moving along. Before the exams are due, I will send you a reminder, okay, days before. Okay, so let's say before the first exam, October 17th, I will send you a reminder around October 13th, around that time, again, probably the Friday before. Look, the first exam is coming up. Okay, it's supposed to be uploaded on Blackboard on October 17th. Okay, just a reminder. Okay, the same with the second and final exams. There will be a reminder, an announcement posted on Blackboard, and a reminder sent. That those exams are due. Okay, so once again, where you find this video presentation under class introduction, I will send you the announcement just shortly that this video is ready to view. Under course content, you'll find the instructional materials. This is where you'll find the recorded video presentations, the video lectures, and under instructional materials you'll also find the lecture outlines as well. Just below there's course assignments, and under course assignments you will find the instructions for all of the assignments for this course, the first, second, final exams, study questions report, and the extra credit assignments. Okay, so under course assignments, you're going to find everything that you need to complete for this course. So you said, okay, so how many assignments are in this course? Where are the instructions? Just go under course assignments, and you're going to find the instructions for everything there. Remember, the extra credit assignments are optional. Those are not mandatory. This is only if you want to improve your grades. Where are you supposed to submit all your work? Under submit work. This is where you submit the first exam, second exam, final exam, study questions report, and the extra credits. All are submitted in this place right here in the corresponding due date. Okay? So this is all I have for you. I hope this video presentation has helped you identify the major components of this course, the requirements, the expectations, and the like. Um, if you have any questions, please contact me, send me an email, and I will respond immediately to your questions. Once again, my name is Alfonso R. Lopez, and I'll be your instructor for this class this semester. This is all I have for you, and I'll see you then in the first video lecture in the Native American history, culture, and religion. All right? Thank you. Bye-bye.